Hello, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. We're going to look at the third week of June 2024 from an astrological perspective. I actually tried to do this yesterday, and I actually did it yesterday, but my internet connectivity was so poor that it was really kind of annoying to listen to. So I'm going to attempt to do this again. Yesterday we had a square between Mercury and Saturn, so I should have known better because I knew there was going to be issues. But let's get started. Let's hope for better days today. All right. Okay. So the week ahead, that is June 16th to June 22nd. We'll first do a general look at the whole week, and then we'll get into the charts. I will timestamp these by day and aspect. I think last time I did it by aspect. So if you want to come back to this at a later time and look at the actual charts of the aspects and use it as a study, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so all right, so we're looking at week 3. Now, last week we had a number of squares to Saturn, a number of squares to Saturn. Saturn, of course, is in the sign of Pisces, and we have many planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mercury, and Venus, all in Gemini. We also have Jupiter in Gemini, but Jupiter moves slower through Gemini, so it's not as much of an issue with Saturn right now, although we will have a Saturn-Jupiter squares coming up, I believe, at the end of the year. So we start with Sunday, the 16th. We have Venus make a first quarter square to Neptune. Now, last week, or the 8th, actually, the end of the first week, we had Venus make a square to Saturn. Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces. Saturn, I think, is at about 17. No, Saturn is at 19, 20 degrees of Pisces. And Neptune is at 30 degrees of Pisces. So Neptune is sitting at the last degree of Pisces and will be sitting there for, I believe, into October. At the beginning of July, Neptune will be stationing retrograde, but because Neptune moves so slowly, it sort of sits in that last degree. We also this year have Pluto sitting in the last degree of Capricorn. So there is a sense in this 2024 energy of things coming to a conclusion, things coming to an end. We are in an 8-year vibration, which is about as you sow, so shall you reap. And it really goes back to 2016 when we started in a 1-year cycle, and we're at the 8th year of that cycle. And so things that were planted, seeds that were planted, things that have happened since then are coming to fruition, and we can certainly see that in actually the legal cases that we're looking at in the United States. Okay, so the first quarter square to Neptune, this occurs at 30 degrees of Gemini Pisces. Now, so what's happening now with the planets in Gemini is they are coming to the end of Gemini and they're making a square to Neptune, and then they move into the next sign of Cancer. So this week is one of those weeks where we move from one energy to another. It's sort of a cusp week. And as planets leave Gemini, they make this sort of the price of the exit. The price of exiting Gemini is making a square to Neptune, and squares to Neptune can create a lot of confusion. All the squares to Neptune this week are first quarter crisis in action squares, and so we feel the need to take an action because crisis produced by this square, but because it's Neptune, it's very hard to sort of see through the sort of the mists ahead. So there's a lot of sort of moving forward on faith this week, I think. On Monday, the 17th, we have Venus, of course, just having made that square, moving out of Gemini, moves into Cancer. We also have on that day Mercury, which is close behind Venus, square Neptune. and then move into Cancer. And then we have Mercury and Venus conjoin in the first degree of Cancer. These conjunctions, Venus-Mercury conjunctions, bring the heart and the mind together. And because they're both inner planets, that means they sit between the Earth and the Sun. They're never really that far away from each other. And so they do come together quite often in this sort of meetup, as it were, between the planet of the mind and the planet of the heart. And this time it comes together at the first degree of Cancer. That's an important degree because it is a world point, and it is the energy of that first degree of Cancer really talks about a reorientation, which we will look at when we get to the actual charts, because we'll look at the Sabian symbols. So there's a reorientation of sorts, a reorientation of the mind and the heart based on our feelings, because now we're in Cancer. And then also on that same day, as planets move out of Gemini, they make that square to Neptune at the last degree of Pisces. They move into the next sign of Cancer. But we also have to remember that Pluto is in the first few degrees of Aquarius. So whenever a planet moves into a new sign, it actually is going to aspect Aquarius and Pluto, and depending on Pluto and Aquarius, and depending on what sign they're moving into indicates the aspect that's going to happen, right? And so when things move into Cancer, they square Neptune, they move into Cancer, and then they inconjunct Pluto. And an inconjunct is a requirement of making adjustments. All these inconjuncts that we're going to talk about this week are have the overlay energy of Virgo. So it's really about a sense of self-improvement. And the self-improvement comes from a place of feeling that from the inside out, that something isn't quite right yet, something isn't quite perfect enough, very Virgo energy, right? And so we make these necessary adjustments. And the adjustments that we're being asked to make are mental adjustments, adjustments around the way we think about things. Hold on, my cat is meowing outside. I'm going to let him in. Just give me a second here. I'm sorry about this. Otherwise, he'll distract me. He's probably going to distract me while he's in here too. On Tuesday, the 8th, we have Venus make that inconjunct to Pluto. Remember, Mercury the day before made the inconjunct to Pluto. This inconjunct's occurring at 2 degrees of Cancer, Aquarius. On Thursday, the 20th, the Sun makes a first quarter square to Neptune. And then, of course, as with all the planets moving out of Gemini, moves into Cancer. Now, that's very significant because the Sun moving into Cancer is here in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year. Back down in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, it is the shortest day of the year. So those of you who are down in Australia, New Zealand, that part of the world are starting their winter, and we are starting our summer up here in the Northern Hemisphere. The sun is at its highest point in the northern sky, and down under the sun is in the lowest point in the sky. So it is a time. The word solstice means sun standing still. Solstice meaning sun stops, and what it means is the sun in here in the Northern Hemisphere stops rising and then starts to come down in latitude. And in the case of the Southern Hemisphere, it goes as low as it's going to go, and then it starts to rise. So here we are, the darkness is starting to get, well, the light has reached its peak, and now it starts to move down, and the darkness reaches its peak down in the Southern Hemisphere. So that is the solstice. And always a powerful point. All the changes of seasons, they're all world points. And of course, we have so much activity around the last degree of, with the last, I probably should have left him outside. The last degree of Gemini into Cancer. the first degrees with Pluto in the first degrees of Aquarius, of course. And so it is one of those times when we really can start to feel the shift. We can really start to feel the shift in energy. Okay, we also, and then on the 21st, we have Mercury make a sextile to Mars. Mercury, the planet of the mind, Mars, the planet of action. Mercury is in Cancer at this point, and Mars is in Taurus. Cancer and Taurus are a very fertile combination. Sextiles open the lines of communication. So it really kind of is an opportunity for us to really talk about things like security and food security and just general security. Both Cancer and Taurus are security-minded signs, but in a very sort of basic, essential need. Not the security of necessarily being in power or anything like that, but the security of knowing that your family is safe and that you have enough food and like. Hopefully this will help to bring some great needed aid in the areas of the world that are suffering so severely due to war. I mean, what can you say? We also, of course, on the 21st have the full moon in Capricorn. Full moons are always points of awareness. Full moons are not a time of action necessarily, but a time of seeing where we stand. This is part of the lunation cycle that began with that new moon in Gemini on the 6-6 portal. In fact, it was 17 degrees of Gemini, the new moon. And so now we come to the halfway point of the lunation cycle, which means that the seeds planted at the new moon have come to fruition. We are aware of them, and now we take the fruits of that, and we disseminate it out into the world, which is the second half of the lunation cycle. On Saturday, the 22nd, the sun, of course, makes an inconjunct to Pluto at 2 degrees of Cancer Aquarius. So that is the just general outlook of the week. And we can see here that in this week, we have a shift of energy from Gemini to Cancer, Gemini to Cancer, Gemini to Cancer. Okay, we can see that there. And then the full moon in Capricorn. All right, let's continue. Let's get into each chart. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can because this is kind of a long one. So the 16th, Venus square in Neptune, 30 Pisces, Gemini. One of the things about this week is the Sabian symbols, because the planets are pretty much doing the same thing, almost at the same degrees. Well, in many cases at the same degrees, but there is nuance to it. So we can look at a little bit nuance with this as well. So we have Venus square Neptune, 30 Pisces, Gemini Pisces. Says this aspect can lead to intense sensitivity, making it difficult to integrate your feelings fully. This sensitivity can blur your perceptions, leading to misjudgments and self-deception. This, of course, is a first quarter square. It's a crisis in action square. And it's an action. The action is the action on seeds planted at the conjunction. That conjunction happens on April 3rd, which incidentally vibrated to a 15-6. That's the devil card. The devil card is the choice between light and dark, right? Are you gonna stay connected to your light, or are you gonna go down into the darkness and the density of the earth plane without keeping connected to your spiritual core, your spiritual thread, as it were? This occurred at 28 of Pisces, a fertile garden under a full moon. Enough is a feast. This symbol speaks to us of living with enough and not more than enough, and when we live with more than enough, that's when things like greed and wanting it all, kind of like the 1% of the 1% comes in, and that is never a good idea. And of course, whenever we reach the heights of something like that, the next step is the redistribution of wealth, which of course will happen once the Democrats get in, at least in this country. And then hopefully just in general with Pluto in Aquarius, the power of the people, right? Now we have Venus at 30 degrees of Gemini, bathing beauties. That's the symbol here, exemplification, choosing the best set of standards for people to aspire towards and accept as a defining quality of community values, choosing standards in order to express values. Square Neptune, which is becoming our own ideal. So there is a square between our own sense of what is our ideal self, right? Or what we idealize in a square to what society deems as an exemplification of beauty or grace or whatever it is. And we are dealing with Venus. So there is that sense. So there's a little bit of, and Venus is a very socially aware planet. So this in itself is going to bring these issues up anyway. And we can see here that these charts that we have here are charts for the U.S. They are erected for Washington, D.C. Apologies, anybody doesn't live here. But there's so much, it's such a pivotal time for my country, coming into this election that I like to share the Washington, D.C. charts. And we have Neptune in the second house of money and values and resources in a square to Venus in the fourth house, in Gemini. The fourth house being the house of land, right? The house of land. All right, let's continue. Monday the 17th, move into a 31-4 vibration. That is the 5 of Wands. So the next couple of aspects, I think there are 4 things happening on the 14th, on the 17th, all have that energy of the 5 of Wands. So there is this energy of fighting, really, or combativeness. There's a combative energy with this vibration, but it is a highly creative vibration, and it is associated with the sign of Leo. So this is an opportunity in a way, as long as we don't get overcome with the fight and have the fight be the thing, we can utilize the energy of this day to create things that we need to create. Venus is ingress into Cancer. So the saving symbol for the first degree of Cancer is on a ship. The sail is lowers an old flag and raise a new one. Major reorientation of loyalties and values. This is true every time planet moves into Cancer. And so we have this, of course, every year the Sun and Mercury and Venus, and every other year Mars moves into Cancer, right? So we do have this reorientation of values every year on multiple levels, but it's mostly the personal planets that this happens with. It isn't until we get into like the social planets like Jupiter and Cancer, or you get into the transpersonal planets of Uranus or Neptune or Pluto in these signs, where we really see a reorientation on a cultural and worldly level. So a lot of this reorientation is personal reorientation, which, everything starts at home, right? My mama used to say charity starts at home. So everything starts at home. Everything starts in the home of your heart, right? Okay, so the moon as the ruler of Cancer. And whenever a planet moves into a sign, I like to look at the ruler of that sign, because it gives a nuance to, first of all, Venus moving into Cancer. Venus is the sign of relationship, and Cancer, of course, is familial relationships, but it's also emotional, and Cancer likes emotional security. It's a very sensitive place for Venus. It tends to be acquisitive. It tends to be a Venus that maybe even looks to the past and sees the past as the best that's ever been, a kind of rose-colored glasses to the past, and tend to get very connected to the past. Sometimes Venus in Cancer, it's hard to move forward into the future or even into the present, because we're spending time reminiscing. Whenever I look through whenever I have to go through papers or different things like this, my husband says to me, stop reminiscing, just get the work done. But I'm a Cancer, so it's hard. It's hard not to like hold everything that and have it bring you back to the experience of the first time you held it, or the picture when that happened when you were 12, that kind of stuff. So the moon is at 30 of Libra for this Venus moving into Cancer, and it's interesting because Venus is Libra is a Venus ruled sign, and Cancer is a moon ruled sign, and so they're changing dance partners, meaning that as the Venus moves into Cancer, they're in what we call mutual reception, which allows the flow. They can change dance partners and not sort of lose the step in the dance. They might have to go a little slower, but they still have the flow of the dance with them. 30 degrees of Libra, 3 mountains of knowledge on a philosopher's head, wisdom of knowledge. We can see as both truth and love, which requires a deep understanding of human nature and the context of life circumstances, using knowledge as a platform to develop wisdom. Venus moving into Cancer in the US chart is happening in the 3rd house. So this is your neighborhood. This is your local area, right? This is right outside your front door. So find your love, compassion, and consideration right outside your front door. My cat is now banging on the door to be let out. So let me go do that. Nothing like having a cat run your life. Okay. So next thing to happen on the 17th is Mercury's ingress into Cancer. Of course, we look again at the Sabian symbol for Cancer, which I already discussed, but we look to the moon, right? Because the moon is going to give us a nuance of this Mercury moving into Cancer. And the moon now has moved on. It's not in Libra anymore, but it's in Scorpio. And the Sabian symbol for 2 degrees of Scorpio, where the moon is, as Mercury moves into Cancer, is a broken bottle and spilled perfume, nostalgia. Didn't I just talk about that? The pull of the past is underlined by poignant emotions of what has passed away and is therefore no longer alive except as memory. Sharing nostalgic memories binds us into community. So we will see that within ourselves, but we'll also see that in communities of people who may not agree with us, like not so much making America great again necessarily, but remember when, and everything was great. We tend to look at the past through rose-colored glasses. So if we really looked back at the past, we might, with a more discerning eye, with maybe an eye not with this Cancer sense of the past was better than the future. And it's interesting because in Trump's chart, making America great again, he does have Saturn conjunct Venus in Cancer. And so there's a fixation of the past, but I'm not really sure it was a past that ever truly existed. So, I don't know. That's just what I want to say. So we have the same sort of energy around, looking back and being connected to the past. And so there's going to be a lot of, at this time, this week, we're going to be remembering things. We'll be remembering I know for me, it's been that kind of journey for me as well. Thinking about, in fact, this morning I was just thinking about my girl Gretchen, my German Shepherd who left the planet in 2000 and when did she pass? 2019. I had to let her go. She was 14. So, and it was time, but I was talking to her this morning as I was making my coffee, and I felt like she was right next to me. So that's the kind of energy that we're working with this week. So Mercury then makes a conjunction to Venus, as I said, in Cancer. Same Sabian symbol, lowering an old flag and raising a new one, the reorientation of loyalties and value. But now the moon has moved on to 4 degrees of Scorpio. Moon continues to move. The moon moves quickly. And 4 degrees of Scorpio is a youth holding up a candle ritual. Candles, incense, special clothes, special occasions, and defined behaviors will create the ingredients of rituals that create sacredness. Communal rituals both settle us and deepen our access to life force. This is a time to do that, to have a ceremony, to have a ritual. Maybe you want to make the same dish your mom used to make. Or in my family, we would have a barbecue. One of my aunts and uncles would always put on a barbecue, and the whole family would get together. And my aunt always made eggplant parmesan, delicious, among other things. But she used to make this cake, and it was just a simple cake, but it had strawberries and whipped cream and blueberries, in the shape of the American flag. So, make one of those but something that will bring you back to a good memory of the past, and then sort of building community around that. I think I was just talking to my neighbor who was saying that on his birthday, they always have a clam bake. And then I had to ask him when his birthday was. I wanted to know when I needed to be available. Like clam bake. Such a Cancer thing. Okay, here we go. All right, so the next thing we're looking at is we're looking at the inconjuncts. Remember I said when planets move into Cancer, then they immediately, or pretty much immediately, make an inconjunct to Pluto. So I put them two together. The first one is, let's see, this is the Mercury. The Mercury inconjunct happens first. That happens on the 17th. And I just want to tell you what it says about these inconjuncts, just so you have a sense. It says there is an inclination within you to exert a level of control that borders on the obsessive. The alignment of Mercury inconjunct Pluto suggests the psychological tension that can cloud your judgment, making it exceedingly harsh and unyielding. So we do need to be careful of being overly critical at this time. We can have a very critical mind. And of course, we can put that criticism on others. This isn't how mom used to make it. This is terrible. Something like that. Don't do that. Or it can be self-critical. Oh God, my mom's was so much better. I can't believe I'm serving this swill to my family. That kind of stuff. You don't want to do that. You keep the judgments, keep the not so much a judgment-free zone, but take the judgment out of it and add the discernment. Have it be a discernment-full zone, as we say. All right. And then on the next day, of course, Venus does the same thing to Pluto. And it's a little bit of a different energy because, of course, Venus is a different energy than Mercury. Being easily drawn into overly burdensome roles in others' lives may stem from an intrinsic belief that this is your fate. Inconjuncts, of course, have that Virgo energy, or these inconjuncts have that Virgo energy. And sometimes Virgo feels like, as long as I can be helpful, that's all that matters. But it's not all that matters. So you have to make sure you're not putting yourself in situations. You don't want to be the person in the family that has to make all the food because you feel that it's your duty, or that it's your fate, or that it's your obligation. Such compulsions can be unconscious, evolving into ritualistic behaviors that continuously reinforce self-defeating and self-denying reactions to others. So be gentle on yourselves and be gentle on others at this time. All right. The 20th, the sun making its first quarter square to Neptune. Remember, the sun is still in Gemini here, right at the end. This is part of the synodic cycle. This is the crisis and action point of the cycle that began when the sun and Neptune conjoined, which incidentally was at the same degree as what was at the sun Mercury. 28 degrees of Pisces, enough is a feast. Success in mastering the earth plane is measured by our ability to win abundance without becoming a slave to greed. Now the sun is at 30 degrees of Gemini, the bathing beauties. And of course, the Neptune is at 30 of Pisces, becoming our own ideal. There is no right answer to or best version of anything. We make it up according to how we feel or think we should. We become whatever we idealize. And so be aware of that. We do become whatever we idealize. And if you're idealizing a felon, let's just say, all right, the vibration for this day is the 10 of Wands, the burden bearer. Perhaps this is a day to release and let go of some of those burdens that you're carrying, burdens from the past, burdens where you're judging yourself. Now we have the sun ingressing into Cancer. This is the summer solstice, as I said, in the northern hemisphere, the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. Of course, we move into Cancer. The commitment, a point of no return. We reorient ourselves in the direction of direction that acknowledges the needs for accepting imperfection, major reorientation of loyalties and values, right? Same symbol. But now the moon has moved into Sag, and we have seagulls flying around a ship, 16 degrees of Sag, incidentally. Seagulls flying around a ship in expectation of food, trusting the survival instinct. It requires clarity and self-discipline to resist the temptation to become habituated to comforts and forget natural instincts, mastery of alertness. So this is sort of maybe shaking us out a little bit out of this sort of nostalgic fog that we're in, and really look at what's going on and a need to look at things clearly. Of course, Sagittarius is a sign of vision, and we need to see what's really going on. And of course, this day vibrates to a 8 of Wands day, which means that there's a lot of information coming at us and to us. And that 8 of Wands is actually, in the system I use, a Sagittarius vibration. And so this Sagittarius moon really sort of points out where we need to where we need to stay alert to the reality of our situation, even at a time when we are spending so much time looking back. One of the things that happens with Cancer. On the 21st, Mercury makes that sextile to Mars, opening lines of communications on seeds planted at the Mercury-Mars conjunction, which occurred on January 27th at 18 degrees of Capricorn. The Union Jack, the power of the state. We all live under the umbrella of an imperial force that has its own political agenda and really takes our preferences into account, coping with the tyranny of unconscious people. This is really, in a way, a symbol of the rule of law, right? The rule of law. And that we may want to do whatever we want to do. And we think we can do whatever we want to do. But we need to abide to the rules of the road. We are in an 8 vibration this year, and it is as you sow, so shall you reap. It is a karma vibration, so we can't forget that. Though I don't think I have to tell you guys that. Mercury is now at 10 degrees of Cancer, a large diamond not completely cut. Training. To have any chance of realization, the seeker must undergo serious, committed training in the hands of a good teacher. So you need to do your due diligence here, right? With this Mercury energy, and of course, Mercury is the mind. So we need to train our mind in this aspect. And then Mars at 10 degrees of Taurus, a Red Cross nurse, compassion. And so we need to train our mind, and we need to act with compassion, raising of love from a personal level to the level of sacredness and service, compassionate service to humanity, guys, humanity. And hopefully we'll see some improvements in this situation in Gaza. And then we have the full moon, of course, on the same day. Full moons are points of awareness. The moon at 3 degrees of Capricorn, this could not be more apt for the situation that we're seeing. 3 stained glass windows, 1 damaged by bombardment. The threat of destruction. Beauty is one of the first casualties of war. And we know that the Israelis have been decimating Gaza, not just the people, but the hospitals and the universities and the museums and everything that creates the culture is being destroyed there. And not to mention the, the the terrible state of the people and the fact that they're not only being bombed, but they're being starved. So we can see this as clear as day. This something we need to look at. We that whole idea of like seeing what really is. Okay, seeing what really is. Opposing the sun, a two of Cancer. A man on a magic carpet hovers over a large area of land. Expanded perception. Settled into a secure sense, the mind is better able to expand its search, to reach, to see things from a higher perspective, expanding our perception of what is and what could be. So while we're seeing this awful destruction, we have to also visualize how it can change and what we need to do to make it change. This is the harvest of seeds planted at the new moon in Gemini. The head of a youth dissolving into the head to a mature. I wrote this all wrong down here. Recognition of our youthful, emotions and maturing towards wisdom. So this is about becoming mature and stopping this ridiculous, often sort of id-filled, childish need to be in charge and be right and be the one and only me. This narcissistic, this malignant narcissism that is permeating the world, really. And of course, we have to remember that Chiron is in Aries. So if we don't know the wound is there, we can't heal the wound. And the North Node is in Aries, which means that our destiny is to heal the wounds. Okay. And lastly, the inconjunct of Pluto to the Sun. Power struggles can surface in your relationships, both with others and within yourself. These conflicts are mirrors reflecting deeper issues of control and vulnerability. When we come from a place of fear, we are not doing anybody any favors. The sun at 2 degrees of Cancer, a man on a magic carpet hovers over a large area of land. Of course, we saw that in the full moon symbols. But Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius, an unexpected thunderstorm, submission to unforeseen and uncontrollable forces. We have to roll in a way with the punches here. The vision is there. We can see the perspective, but there are things that come out of left field that we're going to have to deal with. And that's what this kind of week is about. It's about, yes, connecting with the past and remembering, but it's also about seeing what is real and what is in front of us and then dreaming a better future. All right. Okay, guys, that's it. Hopefully that wasn't too long. It always seems it's just a lot happening. So let me just say goodbye. Have yourself a great week, guys. If you would like a reading with me, I do personal readings. I have availability. I'm going to be on Sue Lynn's channel next week, so my availability will probably start to decrease as when that happens. So you can check that out on my website. I'll leave a link below for that if you're interested in a reading. I do readings 90 minutes or 60 minutes. If it's your first time, 90 minutes is preferable because there's a lot of information to go over. I do a combination astrology, numerology, and Kabbalah. It's probably like nothing you've had before. And most people really enjoy it. All right. Take care of everyone and have a great week. Much love. Namaste.